Hello everyone, and many thanks for participating in this stream, for joining, for your attention, and many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on. This is a traditional community chat that I have on Sundays nowadays on YouTube and on Fridays on Rumble channel. And well, first part will be news segment. I will share with you some latest reports in Russian media, and then I will get engaged with the chat, and I will try to be as informative as I can while commenting on certain topics or questions. And so, without further delay, let's start. And well, first news, dear friends, is about this interview that Russian President Vladimir Putin gave to Zarubin, Russian journalist from TV1. And we have some key points from his statement. So let's go through these key points, and we'll have at least somewhat more or less good understanding of takes of the Russian president on some major topics. So about Ukraine, Russian president said that reconciliation with Ukraine is inevitable. It is a matter of time. I guess he meant not the entire Ukraine, but historical Russian territory, because western parts of Ukraine, well, that's a whole different story, and I don't think Russia really needs reconciliation with the western parts of Ukraine. My personal take on that. I think that area, by the way, that western part of Ukraine, which is mainly populated by elements that are indoctrinated in a neo-Nazi ideology for decades and decades and decades, that party and those people are going to be a big issue for Poland very soon, for Hungary somewhat, and also for Romania. But I don't think Russia needs that problem, right? So rest of the territory, different story, but Western Ukraine, thanks, no. Also, Russian president said that even without nuclear weapons, Russia has enough forces and resources to complete their special military operation with the results it needs, which is true, by the way. Yes, Russia, even without nuclear weapons, will achieve victory in this proxy war that Western ruling class globalists are waging against Russia. But on the topic of nuclear weapons, I might have a bit different opinion than Russian president. I spoke about it this morning in the first update, so there's no need to repeat myself on that. Also, Russian president stated that Russia could not begin to make drastic decisions on Ukraine without carrying out work in their areas of security and economics, which is true, obviously, and quite a good job was done by Russian government in this regard, and work is still on the way. After all, since the escalation, Western world imposed tens of thousands of sanctions on Russia, and even though I guess Western elites were hoping for quick destruction of Russian economy and Russian social fabric, they failed in this regard, as they failed in many other cases, and the Russian economy is feeling strong. Right, there are some issues undoubtedly, but clearly Russian economy withstand this pressure, and this is due to work that was done by government, undoubtedly. Russia did not prepare specifically for the special military operation and wanted to resolve the Donbass problem by peaceful means. This was stated by Russian president, which is also true, because after all, he did had a hope that Minsk 1 and Minsk 2 agreements will resolve the issue, right? But it was this Minsk 1, Minsk 2 agreements were destined to fail, because after all, we all remember that former president of France, Hollande, and former chancellor of Germany, Merkel, they openly stated publicly that they were using Minsk 1, Minsk 2 agreements to basically fool Russia, to gain some time for this Western-backed terrorist regime in Kiev, to rearm it, to reorganize it. so that they will use this Kiev regime against Russia as their proxy as effectively as they possibly could. So therefore, maybe yes, Russian leadership had some high hopes on Minsk 1, Minsk 2 agreements and did not really were focusing on military solutions, but well, eventually it came to a special military operation anyway. Also, Russian president stated that Russia was forced to support the Crimea and Sevastopol residents in 2014, but starting their special military operation was unrealistic at that time. I guess Russian president did try to answer while saying so on the questions that Russian society has, why special military operation did not begin in 2014 when a US-led coup d'etat took place in Kiev. And well, Russian president thinks that I guess Russia was not ready probably at the time for such an operation. Maybe we will never know, because you know, history is already written and we cannot rewrite it, right? And also Putin stated that while announcing the special military operation, he counted on the support of the Russians and their corresponding reaction, but he was aware of their risk. Okay. About the West, Putin stated that West wanted to provoke Russia into making mistakes and they're hitting back. Okay. The West constantly wants to bite off something from Russia, to subjugate it, to make it more obedient. Also true, historical true, by the way, historically accurate statement. The West did not heed the warning at the Munich. West did not hear the warning at the Munich conference, which led to the events in Ukraine. Russian president is here recalling his own statement in 2007 when he gives speech in Munich during this Munich Security Conference, and that was a historical speech, isn't it, dear friends? If some members of our community did not yet listen to it, I definitely recommend to listen to that speech of Russian president, because well, if Western so-called elites did listen then to the warnings that Putin was issuing, then we would live in a very different and much more peaceful world right now. But unfortunately, Western ruling elites listen to Russian statements of Russian president, but did not really act accordingly or adequately on these statements, and eventually we are where we are. World is divided basically. On one side is a collective West, and on the other side is the rest of the world. About Minsk agreements, also did spoke Russian president. The West, under the pretext of the Minsk agreements, took a break to rearm Ukraine, which is factual, and I just spoke about it. Russia expected the Minsk agreements to be observed, but their country was simply deceived, which is also true and unfortunate. Russian leadership should never trust Western so-called elites, but they did, and results are speaking volume, isn't it? The situation with the Minsk agreements is an experience that needs to be taken into account in the future, and I really hope Russian leadership will take in account this experience with the Minsk agreements, because nowadays there are still some movements in regards to so-called negotiations between Russia and the Western elites, and Moscow have to be very careful, because in no circumstances, by the way, in no circumstances, current elites in the West will honor any agreement that they will sign up for. So it's a very tricky situation, isn't it? When talks kind of are needed, de-escalation is needed, but same time with whom you are talking to, right? With their elements that represent Western elites or Western ruling class, globalists, we can call them whatever we want, but you are talking to elements that cannot be trusted ever, right? So it is difficult stuff. Obviously, experience of Minsk 1, Minsk 2 should be taken in account, and Russia should be careful, really. I don't think talks just for the sake of talk are that necessary. So if Western ruling class is not ready to acknowledge that they lost this proxy war against Russia, and if Western ruling class is not ready to agree on serious, very serious concessions before Russia, then I don't think there is any need, really, these useless talks to continue. But yet again, decision is up to Kremlin, obviously. About Russia, Russian president stated in this interview that currently their poverty level in Russia is the lowest in the modern history, which is true. And as I said, economy is doing quite well, by the way, despite all this tremendous pressure from the West, tens of thousands of sanctions, trade war, and so on. For a country to be stable, people need to trust the government, and to gain trust, people's situation needs to be improved. Well, it is good that the Russian president is not just demanding trust, or not just articulating the trust and unity in this critical time between society and leadership is extremely important and necessary, but he is also pointing out that this trust cannot be based on empty space. People's needs have to be addressed, and people's lives have to be improved. So, clearly, Russian president stands on the right ground in this regard, 100%. Russia without traditional values will lose its identity, which is, I guess, hardly can be doubted. And I said many times before that Russia is definitely being seen by many people worldwide, including by citizens of collective West countries, as a last stronghold of traditional values, normality. And that's why, many people from all around the world, including Western countries, are migrating to Russia. And I expect this migration to take a phase of wave soon, and then even kind of tsunami, because yet again, I think Russia is a greatest country to live in right now. If you are for normality, by the way, if you are for traditional values, then Russia is the place to live for sure. The moral and ethical basis of the self-awareness of Russians is the foundation of the Russia's future. Also, agree, nothing to debate here. The issue of demography is one of the most fundamental for the development of Russia, which is also true. And government, by the way, I spoke about it quite a few times before, that government is doing quite a lot to improve situation with their demography. There are plenty of programs, government finance programs in place to encourage families to have more kids. There are plenty of programs in place to help families improve their living conditions, and it does have some result. Although obviously, issue of demography is a very tough one, and I guess more needs to be done, more incentives, so that people will have 3-4 kids. Maybe more even, right, in average. But it is a huge responsibility, isn't it, for families. And therefore, I guess some additional social guarantees, social security guarantees need to be introduced, so that especially younger families will not be that afraid to go big, right? To have 3-4 kids, maybe more. But work is done in this direction, undoubtedly. Hardly anyone can say that government is not trying to, improve situation with demography. Separatist tensions in Russia in the 90s were strong, and not only in the North Caucasus, which is also a correct statement. So Western secret services, by the way, were trying hard to inflate separatist movements on Russian territory after Soviet Union collapse. Inside the Soviet Union, first, And then when Soviet Union collapsed, the Western secret services were trying to do the same inside the Russia. And unfortunately, in northern Caucasus region, they managed to create significant turbulence in this regard. But eventually, common sense prevailed, and the country is still united. People are united and stand strong. So it is what it is. If they had not been able to hold the country together in the 90s, Russia would have faced a very sad future. I guess he's talking about his predecessors. And yes, I guess Yeltsin could deal with some issues that country was facing very differently in much better and effective ways, but he still managed to maintain country's unity somehow. So therefore, okay, I can give them that. But if you ask me, by the way, Yeltsin's presidency was a total disaster for Russia. Absolute disaster, man. About China, Russian president also spoke during this interview with Pavel Zarubin. So even at the beginning of my presidency, I noticed that the centers of economic growth were shifting to Asia. And besides, we are neighbors. He's talking about China and the strategical partnership that Russia and China have. Also, who can dispute this statement? Little by little, brick by brick, we did not build a new Chinese wall, but build a common foundation for our relations, which is also great, by the way. I always highlight that in my personal take, Russia's a strategical partner, closest strategical ally outside of Russia, Belarusian Commonwealth, I will say, Confederation, is clearly India, in my personal opinion. But relationships, stronger partnerships and strategical relationships with China is definitely also extremely crucial, and somewhat creates additional guarantees of stability in Central Asia, in the global South, in the Pacifics. So it's all good there. About G7, look at how many countries there are in the so-called Big Seven. It is no longer clear why it is a big, Russian president said, and this is also true, by the way. G7 is pretending to be biggest economies in this world. Like this club was created as a top economies in this world, right? And take a look at the G7 countries, by the way. Every single one of them is experiencing difficulties that are hardly they are able to overcome, right? Even US, by the way. Nothing to be said about other much smaller economies, right? That are in decline. So therefore, question is absolutely legit. Why these clubs exist, first of all, and why they call themselves big while they are not, isn't it? Compared to whom? To China? I don't think they are big compared to China, and compared to Russia, I don't think they are that big compared to Russia, because in PPP index, by index of purchasing power parity, Russia is on 4th place, right? And China is number 1, by the way, by that index. The BRICS, and the Russian president also stated that the BRICS countries have already surpassed the G7 countries in terms of purchasing power parity, which is also correct, by the way. So, G7 leadership can get together once in a while and, I don't know, take a photo, family photo, but what they really represent, I don't know. About the future, Russian president stated that in 25 years, the Asia-Pacific region will become more powerful economically and politically, and the G7's share in the global economy and the world affairs will continue to decline. Absolutely true, by the way. I can add that in 20, 25, 30 years, by the way, US may still be on a world stage if US will somehow manage to normalize relationships with Russia and India. a number of other countries. But when it comes to Europe, well, EU, by the way, or Europe in general, well, destiny for Europe is quite a difficult one in my personal opinion, because Europe has no potential for growth, has no energy, has no resources to grow. European societies are stretched beyond limits and for quite a while now, and therefore I guess only countries in Europe that will manage to at least preserve themselves and preserve stability and stable growth, at least bit by bit, is going to be countries that will manage to have a good relationships with Russia. That's just how it is. And we will find out, I guess, in 20, 30 years. About the successor of his, Russian president also spoke about. I constantly think about successor, but ultimately the choice will be up to the Russians. There must be few people who can gain their people's trust, and this is a big topic, of course. Who will succeed Putin on the position of presidency? I can give you right now several candidacies, but this will be pure speculation. No one knows, and maybe not even Putin knows for now, for this moment, who he will choose to be his successor. And because of his, huge support that he has in the public, obviously, whomever will be his successor will most likely win the elections, because yet again, Putin's last time I see reports about that, Putin's trust rating was way above 70%, by the way. So therefore, but currently at this particular moment, maybe Putin himself don't knows who will be his successor. Probably he is working with several candidacies and just monitoring, and one day he will choose one that based on his opinion will succeed most as a leader. Let's see who that person is going to be. And then he also spoke about some, he was giving some personal questions, and okay, I will pass on that. So interesting statements from Russian president, undoubtedly, and important ones. Meanwhile, dear friends, delegations are beginning to arrive in Russia to participate in 80th anniversary of their victory in a great patriotic war. And for example, Cuban president already arrived there. Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez has arrived in Russia to celebrate their 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. And also, by the way, it's a 65-year anniversary of diplomatic relationships, I believe, between Russia and between Moscow and Havana. And that is also quite a reason to celebrate. President of Cuba arrived in St. Petersburg, and from there he will travel to Moscow, and he will be on Red Square during the victory parade. TASS news agency is also reporting, confirming basically information that I reported in today's first update, that Chinese President Xi Jinping will visit Russia on an official trip on May 7th, and he will stay in Russia until 10th of May. I don't really remember any other occasion when Chinese leader visited one country for 4 straight days. Maybe I'm mistaken, maybe this is something traditional for Chinese leader, but I think this is quite a rare occasion when Xi Jinping is visiting one particular country and stays there for 4 straight days. Probably media outlets will pay attention to this quite long visit, and of course Chinese leader Xi Jinping will be among the guests on the Red Square during the victory parade. RT is reporting that, Serbia's deputy prime minister made a statement in regards to Vucic's visit into Moscow. President of Serbia failed ill while visiting US, and rumors start circulating, as I talk about it in this today's first update, that he might postpone his visit to Moscow. But our prime minister stated that Alexander Vucic is expected to attend Russia's Victory Day celebrations. And same statement was made by Fico, by the way, Robert Fico, who also failed ill. And the rumors started circulating about him also, that maybe this is a kind of trick to avoid additional Western pressure, to pretend that, they feel bad and, they feel sick and cannot travel to Moscow. But Fico himself also makes statement that despite this illness or whatever, he is going to travel to Moscow and attend victory celebrations. So I guess no more questions about and no more speculations about this topic of these two leaders visiting Moscow or not. But as I said this morning, by the way, what is known for sure is that India's prime minister Modi would not be able to travel to Russia because of the escalation between India and Pakistan, and India's defense minister also would not come, understandably so. Country is on the edge of large-scale military conflict, so definitely it is not the time to travel around. Even if it's a travel into strategical partner Russia to celebrate Victory Day, as I said, India is on the edge of war itself now. So obviously high-ranking officials of India are staying in India and working on resolutions for current escalation, and hopefully they will manage to de-escalate. Although information is on daily basis are coming more and more stressful, or we have more and more indicators that situation is escalating. Because, for example, today number of media outlets reported that India suspended water flow through dam on the Pakistan border. India has temporarily stopped water flow through the Baglihar Dam on the Chenab River on the border with Pakistan. Similar measures are planned for the Krishna Ganga Dam on the Jhelum River, the Indian agency PTI reported, citing sources. And I think this is a dangerous move on part of India, because Pakistani leadership stated that if water flow will be cut, then Pakistan or Islamabad will take it as an act of war. The escalation is desperately needed between the two countries, and I guess it is time rest of the world to get engaged in this crisis. UN might take leadership in that. Russia is open to mediate between the sides, other countries. And let's hope situation will de-escalate, because it is just too dangerous, man. This is our nuclear powers, and the world cannot afford, not just India and Pakistan themselves, but humanity cannot afford war between these nuclear powerhouses. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that Netanyahu vows more strikes after a Yemen missile strike on Ben Gurion airport. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised even more strikes in response to attack after missile launched from Yemen fell near a Ben Gurion airport. What kind of construction of the sentence this is, by the way? After a Yemen missile crash, this missile did not crash. This missile was launched intentionally towards Israel. It did not crash there by some random coincidence. TASS news agency, what are you doing, man? Unbelievable. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised her even more strikes on Yemen. Israeli officials are stating that they are in constant communication with US, and they will coordinate their strikes against Ansar Allah movement or Yemeni Houthi rebels, as they also are known. And unfortunately, escalation is situation is nowhere near to the escalation when it comes to Middle East, Israel, Israeli neighbors, and also Yemen. And I don't think with more strikes against Ansar Allah movements, Israel or US or their allies gonna achieve anything really. But what they will do is they will make more enemies, because with their strikes they are killing more and more civilians that have relatives that will seek revenge, right? Probably forever. So that's what they do. They are creating more enemies for themselves. Israel, US, and everyone else that is engaged in these attacks on Yemen or any other country in the region, including Palestine, by the way. Meanwhile, interesting report that Turkey refuses to open airspace for Netanyahu's plane. I believe in 5 to 6 days' time, Netanyahu was planning to visit Azerbaijan, and due to Israeli strikes on large-scale strikes on Syria, Turkey is extremely upset now. At one point, reports were even coming in that Israeli and Turkish planes crash over Syria, get engaged in some hostilities. I did not see any confirmation of that on other media outlets, and therefore I did not report about it in my news updates. But well, number of sources did report that. In any case, relationships between Tel Aviv and Ankara is very tense, and this information just confirms that Turkey blocked its airspace for Netanyahu's plane. RT reports, meanwhile, that Mexico rejects Trump's troops offer. So Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has rejected US President Donald Trump's offer to deploy US troops to fight the drug cartels. She insisted that while Mexico is open to cooperation, it will never accept subordination to Washington. Okay, strong statements from Mexico, and understandable one. Mexico is a sovereign state and tries to act as a sovereign state for sure, despite this huge giant neighbor, US, and quite hostile, at least time to time. And historically, by the way, let's be real here, not time to time, but historically, Mexico lost half of its territory due to US occupation, right? So relationships between two countries was never really great, and probably will further deteriorate. Probably will further deteriorate for a number of reasons, including hostile policies of the Washington. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that opposition claims Romanian presidential elections are falsified. As I reported this morning, dear friends, there is a presidential elections in Romania in which, according to preliminary data, opposition candidate was leading. But as I said, if opposition candidate will win or gain majority of votes, then globalists and globalist puppet regime in Romania will cancel these elections also, as they did 6 months ago, and they will continue to do so until they will organize, quasi-win for their own candidate. So therefore, I'm not at all surprised that opposition is making such statements that elections being manipulated and falsified. Soon we will have more detailed information on that. RT, and I will report about it in tomorrow's update, dear friends, in tomorrow's first update. And I will end this news segment of this live stream with this report that US plans to end the International Space Station before 2030. US government has confirmed it will begin winding down operations on the International Space Station, ISS, with the goal of retiring their orbiting lab by 2030. The decision is included in the White House's fiscal year 2026, this cautionary budget request released on Friday. NASA first detailed the plan to decommission the ISS in December 2021. This was reiterated in follow-up documents published in early 2022. So yes, I mean, by 2030, this International Space Station probably will end its existence. It will be lowered into Earth atmosphere and will burn down almost completely. And by that time, by 2030, I guess the US will try to build its own space station. China is already building its space station, and I guess Russia will also will do the same. I know there is work done in Roscosmos in this direction, so that soon Russia will start building its own space station. We all remember Mir, isn't it? A Mir station, Soviet era station. After Mir was decommissioned, Russia get engaged in this program of International Space Station, and I guess parties will go along now after ISS. Our main players, US and Russia, and countries that were participating in International Space Station will join either US or the Russia in new space station programs. It seems logical. I guess that's exactly what's going to happen. Or who knows, maybe Russia and China will decide, or Russia and India will decide to build their space station together. Also a possibility, isn't it? And okay, that is when it comes to news segment. Let's go through chat now, dear friends. This is, after all, community chat, isn't it? So okay, let's go through comments now. And okay. We have comments from Nikos, a friend of ours from Greece. Levan, you talked about deployment of nuclear weapons, but even that would not persuade their elites to stop. These people are psychopaths. Sometimes I think they want nuclear war. Well, they might be psychopaths, but I don't think they are suicidal ones. And when I spoke about nuclear weapons this morning in the program, I meant that, Russia could deploy a couple of nukes into some unpopulated areas, right? To make sure that there are no casualties as a result of this demonstration of force, basically. And I think it would work. This is my personal opinion, by the way. I think it would work. And the NATO member states, globalists, Western ruling class, they will not dare to get engaged in this proxy war in a way that they did, by the way. Right? But, I mean, it didn't happen, right? Decision was made by Russian leadership to conduct policies that we see in past 3 years, and well, we are where we are, right? What can I add to that? But I think Western so-called elites are not suicidal. They are psychos, for sure, but not suicidal. And also, Nikos is commenting that everyone is a coward. Fico, Vucic backed down from coming to May 9th. Orban will vote for extend the sanctions. Even Trump is a coward. They are all afraid of being labeled as a Putin's puppets. Well, about Fico and Vucic, I did a report in just a couple of minutes ago that reports are that both will, despite all the rumors, they will come to Moscow. Let's see. I mean, in a couple of days' time, we will find out. When it comes to Orban and Hungary's stance on these sanctions, I think Hungary will eventually vote for further prolongation of the sanctions. But yet again, One might understand why Hungary is doing this. They just are not in a position to withstand pressure from Brussels, right? And this is quite an excuse, really. They cannot harm their own people, right? They cannot harm their own economies. And Brussels are in a position to harm Hungary big time, right? So therefore, politically, Hungary's stand is well known. They are against sanctions. But economically, unfortunately, Budapest is in no position to withstand pressure. So therefore, government there is just forced to back down. They are trying to maintain opposition to further prolongation of sanctions against Russia or against more sanctions on Russia. They are calling for the escalation, but when it comes to final decision making, well, Hungary's leadership have no option but to back down, exactly because they are in weak position. They are just too dependent now on Brussels, right? And that's why EU is a hostile entity for European states. And that's why I guess people in Europe do understand this, realizing that, right? And that's why numbers of Eurosceptics are growing year after year after year. I mean, when majority will wake up, it might be just too late to change anything. So much damage will be done. But process is still there, isn't it? Nevertheless, that numbers of Eurosceptics are increasing. So I would not call them cowards, by the way. I will choose more diplomatic language, but they are in difficult position. It is what it is. And when it comes to Trump, well, I was never taking Trump seriously as a political figure. He's not a politician. He being chosen, by the way, because he has huge following. He is being chosen by certain groups of influence in the US to be their front runner and to sign up for whatever papers he is given, right? And therefore, Trump is an actor. He is just an actor. He's acting, right? Sometimes maybe he's acting just too much, way too much. But that's what he is. And people in US, I guess, like this type of acting. He's still quite popular, right? And that's it. And when it comes to US policies, by the way, as I said many times before, I think these America First forces maybe exaggerated their influence on initial stages, but now once they are in White House, or they have their candidate in White House, they are realizing how widespread the globalist control over the US is. And the pressure on White House is increasing literally on daily basis from within US and from outside, from the Western Europe mainly. And therefore we are seeing somewhat, beginning of the changes in the tone of the Washington, isn't it? For example, in regards to Ukrainian crisis. Just recently, Trump authorized additional military aid package, additional funds for military aid package for Kyiv regime. Overall, about 400 million US dollars were allocated for that. Number of elements in Trump's administration are making more and more hostile statements towards Russia. US conservative media, so-called conservative media, which I have some doubts that are really conservative. Probably they are run by very same groups of interest that CNN and MSNBC are run. They are just too similar in many ways. So even conservative media is still pushing and very hard, by the way, anti-Russian hysteria. So therefore, I don't know why anybody expected that things will get really better once Trump is in office. I don't know, but I didn't, right? And I was skeptical always. And on initially when even before Trump's inauguration, and especially after Trump's inauguration, some members of our community were criticizing me. Why am I being critical towards Trump's administration? They did not yet have had the time to make some changes. Well, 100 days has passed, right? Did they had enough time to do something? They did, but do you see any changes really in a positive manner? No. Some absolutely irrelevant talks did take place, and what? US continues to supply weapons to Kyiv regime, to allocate money for Kyiv regime, to share intelligence to Kyiv regime. US is still engaged and plays crucial role in this proxy war against Russia. So where is the changes? Trump was promising that he will end this war, but 100 days has passed since his presidency, second term, and US is still engaged in this war, big time. So it is what it is, man. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, how is your job hunt going on? Did you get breakthrough? Hello, Nidish. Well, as I said the day before yesterday, that was now we have May holidays. So I think until 10th of May, 11th of May, hardly any company that I send application on the vacancies will react to my application. Or after, my hope is that after 10th, 11th of May, I may get some reaction. But either ways, after 10th of 11, I will start applying for a job in more and more companies, and I really hope before end of this month I will receive some invitations for an interview. I hope so, and then we will see. Before now, I was applying mainly for a journalistic job, or job that is somewhat connected with the journalism in the media, but probably from I will start applying for a job in some other fields also, because I have to find a job. I mean, it's not about my preferences, it's about finding job, right? I have to. So therefore, hopefully before end of this month, I will have a breakthrough in this regard, and I will report about it, dear friends. Until I have a day job, I will continue work in a traditional way that I do my work on this project. But once I will have a invitation for an interview, I will let you know, our community, and once I will have a new job, then of course I will announce whatever changes I will have to make in a schedule, in a programming, because obviously things will change, right? And I'm gonna be more focused, I think, on Patreon, Boosty, Rumble, and YouTube. I will try to be active on YouTube also, by the way, for sure. But level of activity, I don't know. Maybe once I will come home from work, I will make live stream, news update on Rumble, and I will publish this video from live stream. I will record it same time, and I will publish this video on YouTube for next morning, so that there will be some content on daily basis still on YouTube. Or maybe I will publish some short videos. I don't know yet. But whenever some changes are coming, I will definitely announce about it. So we will see. I mean, maybe some miracle will happen, and tomorrow I will receive later that, I don't know, some business here in Russia will sponsor my programs, and I will have opportunity to continue be focused on this project full time. But I don't really believe in miracles, so therefore it is what it is. Smoky Seal is commenting, Levan, how is your daughter enjoying school in Moscow? Well, my daughters, by the way, older one is elder daughter is in the university. She went to university this year, and she's doing okay, adapting quite well, and she's on the journalism, and time to time she does helps me with some programs, and on Patreon page I already published several programs when she was participating, and recently I published a new episode of a heritage program, which was done completely by my older daughter, right? So she's doing good, and my younger daughter is in a school, and she's adapting also well. Of course, movement, this when you are moving, when your family is moving from one region to another, and we moved from Moscow region to Moscow, it is a stressful stuff for sure, for all of us, especially for younger ones. And it's a big difference, by the way. Moscow is, for us, is extremely expensive. And, we are experiencing some difficulties in general, but, we are trying to deal with the situation. So daughters are adapting well enough, they are happy. And me and my wife, we are trying our best to, do our part as well as we possibly can. So thank you for your question. Nitish Kumar is also asking, Levan, what's your opinion of AFD getting banned, and on Romanian elections? EU is already crying their candidate as a pro-Russian. Well, when it comes to AFD, dear friends, I don't really know much about AFD. All I know is this party is very popular, or most popular, in Eastern Germany, which was part of, which was a German Democratic Republic while Germany was divided, isn't it? And this party is actually against escalation with Russia. I mean, it's a kind of strange, isn't it, that this territory, according to Western propaganda, Western Germany was occupied by Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was so terrible for Eastern Germany, and all that kind of crap is being spread worldwide by Western propaganda. But turns out things were quite different, because in Eastern Germany, most popular party is AFD, which is against Germans' involvement in this war. At least publicly, that's the statements that leadership of AFD is making, and they are for cooperation with Russia, right? I think this comes from a standpoint of national interests of Germany, and I can see that, right? I can see logic behind such a position, but obviously I'm not an expert in German political system, German parties, and I don't know what kind of other policies AfD is adopting, but I don't really believe there are some sort of fascists. If you ask me, current leadership of Germany are fascists, because usually it's a fascists operating that way when they are banning all the alternatives, right? If we remember history, that's how Nazi Germany was created, right? Followers of that mustache man burned down Reichstag at one point, canceled just about all political parties, right? And created their own, this psychopathic dictatorship. So I think these classical parties in Germany probably are more fascistic than AfD is. And nowadays, we all know how this propaganda of the globalists operates, isn't it? If you are saying anything critical about migration, for example, uncontrolled migration, you've been labeled straight away as some sort of a Nazi or the fascist, right? While you are none of that, right? You yourself might be a migrant, but if you are incorporated with society well, if you are learning the language, local language, if you are respecting local traditions, culture, then you are integrated, right, in the society, and you are well welcomed in that case. But if you are ignoring everything that should be respected and trying to impose your will on the society, you will receive reaction on that, right? And there are people that are reacting on that. To be called fascists or that kind of stuff is wrong, in my opinion, right? So, you know, that's my take on AfD, by the way. And they're claiming that they are not banned yet. They are not being banned. What happened is that German counterintelligence branded their AfD as an extremist organization, and that gives them a sort of legal means to conduct some work against this party, to have their informants inside the party, to conduct surveillance, basically, in much larger scale, right? And this decision to brand this party as extremist reignite, of course, calls from current regime in Germany to completely ban this party. But yet again, I think this is all wrong. I don't think her AfD is Nazis or the fascists, by the way. If you want to see Nazis, get to Ukraine. Get to Western Ukraine, by the way. You will see a lot of them that hate literally everybody. Right? But AfD, I don't think AfD is a fascist, by the way. But yet again, I mean, I said from the beginning, isn't it, that I'm not an expert in Germany or German political system. This is just my impression. And obviously, current regime, globalist control regime in Germany, not gonna manage to achieve much, because resilience from the society will only increase. Because I guess more and more Germans are finding themselves in the situation when they just had enough. They just simply had enough, isn't it? And this situation is repeating itself in many other European countries. In Italy, by the way, in France, in Ireland, in UK, you name it, right? So, and when it comes to Romania, by the way, I mean, we should not be surprised at all if opposition candidate, main opposition candidate, that's supported by previous candidate that was cancelled, Georgescu, will receive majority of votes, these elections would be cancelled again. I have no doubts, or at least I would not be surprised if this globalist puppet regime in Bucharest will cancel these elections also, and will start prosecuting current opposition candidate, as they did with Georgescu. That's why I'm saying that Brussels regime is a fascist regime, by the way. And the puppet regimes of Brussels are actually fascists. Although they are trying hard to blame others in extremism, right? But it is the current regimes of the globalists that are actually trying to gain as much power as possible in their hands, right? Suppressing just about everybody. Waltzu is commenting, Waltzu is our friend from Finland, by the way. Do you have any idea about the North Korean losses in Kursk? Have they been discussed in Russia? I know a Chinese pro-West guy here, and he said 2/3 of soldiers died. I don't believe him. I mean, 2/3, no way, by the way. If 2/3 died, that means literally everyone from North Korean contingent was either killed or wounded. Literally everyone, right? And I mean, this is even mathematically probably is close to impossible, right? Obviously, I don't know about real casualty numbers among North Korean troops. I can imagine that even though Russian side was providing training for the North Korean troops, based on new knowledge that we have now, after Russian side officially recognized presence of North Korean troops in the Kursk region, even though Russian troops were providing training for North Koreans, I guess once they were deployed on the front line, they did experience some shock because of the because of the modern means of warfare. But I think they did manage to adapt as fast as possible. And one of the indicators of that can be that Kiev regime didn't really manage to capture that many POWs from North Korea. They were reporting about 2 North Korean POWs, isn't it? That they managed to capture through. I'm not sure about this information being true, but if they did capture, let's imagine they did capture 2 North Korean POWs from a contingent of, I don't know, Western propaganda was saying that it's like 10, 12,000 North Koreans, isn't it? And from 10 to 12,000 North Koreans, if only 2 members of North Korean contingent fail into hands of Kiev regime while being wounded or, under severe concussion, well, that itself demonstrates that, North Korean troops probably adapted quite quickly to this high-intensity warfare, drone warfare, and so on. And therefore, on initial stages, they might have quite significant losses. But after that, probably their losses were minimized. But definitely not 2/3, by the way. 2/3 died means everyone else was wounded. This is just impossible, right? But probably they suffered some significant losses, especially on initial stages, because they didn't know, despite the Russian training, obviously they didn't knew what was waiting for them. And in a zone of special military operation, we are observing now creation of completely new tactics, new strategies, new ways of warfare, right? That really nobody knew before special military operation. And most experienced forces in this new type of warfare are now Russian forces and Ukrainian forces, right? And that's why I am laughing when there is reports that UK will train certain number of Ukrainian troops. I mean, really? What Ukrainian troops know about modern warfare? I mean, literally what? Nothing, right? How are they gonna train Ukrainian troops, by the way, that are much more experienced than British troops? And same goes for every other NATO member state, by the way, US, France, Germany. I mean, how are they gonna train Ukrainian troops, man? What they gonna teach them, right? But yes, I mean, open data, by the way, is not non-existent, obviously, understandably so. It's a military operation, so therefore no one side is providing exact numbers in regards to casualties, but I think North Koreans suffered some losses, potentially significant losses, combined losses, I mean, KIA and wounded, but definitely not 2/3, man. It's just too high a number. And if 2/3, you tell me how can you believe, also that 2/3 died? I mean, then all others must be wounded, isn't it? Because based on modern statistics, every one KIA means at least 2 or 3 others were wounded. So if 2/3 died, then the rest of them were wounded, right? And who are then those North Koreans that we are seeing in videos nowadays? They did not look like being wounded, right? So, let's Nikos is commenting, answering Watsu's question about 30 to 50 out of 500. is Nikos is his projection. I mean, yet again, I cannot know. I just don't know how many North Koreans died in the battlefield during the liberation of Kursk salient, where North Korean troops were participating. But on initial stages, probably they have some significant losses. Maybe this number from Nikos is accurate, and they lost majority of these 30 or 50 troops. They lost on first stages, but they managed to adapt, and losses obviously come down. Nitish Kumar is asking Levan, if EU collapses, what are the chances of fighting against each other like before? High chances, by the way. I think it is even inevitable that European states will begin fighting each other in next 10 to 15 years. I can see at least several scenarios that are, in my personal opinion, are inevitable when the European states will fight each other. And also I think okay, I can. Dear friends, I have a little advertising, short video from new episode on Patreon. Yesterday, as I said this morning, yesterday I filmed military vehicles, and so we came close to this military vehicles in the central parts of Moscow that were participating in rehearsal. And in a minute, I will show you a short clip from that. I already published this video, longer video on my Patreon and Boosty pages. But to answer question from the dish, I think several countries in Europe are destined for civil war. It seems inevitable to me, and several countries in Europe most likely will end up fighting each other. I can name but these countries, by the way. I think war between Poland and Germany is inevitable, absolutely inevitable. I think France will experience some very significant difficulties in relationships with some of its neighbors. I think Belgium is destined to be divided 100%. Belgium not gonna survive as a united country. In Balkans, by the way, military hostilities are absolutely inevitable, and we might see Serbia and Croatia united against a number of other countries. It might sound surprising right now, but I can see scenarios like that. And I expect relationships between UK and European states to deteriorate beyond imagination. And UK itself, give it 15-20 years, and I'm not sure UK, as we knew it currently, will still exist. Europe is doomed, by the way, big time. And as I said, the only countries that will maintain, will manage to be in a more or less good place is going to be countries that will have at least good working relationships with Russia. And dear friends, let me show you this video that I was talking about. So, missile launcher. I think this is Oreshnik. If I'm correct, then of course demonstration of Oreshnik have to be. This is Tverskaya Street. Big surprise. So this is, yes, definitely BMP-free infantry fighting vehicles there. This is ICBM, by the way, for sure. I don't know, is it a YARS or something like that, but This is clearly intercontinental ballistic missile, and I'm quite sure it is significantly better than BTR-82s or any BTR vehicle. And this is Boomerang, I'm quite sure about it. And there are some more vehicles. On that side, we are getting closer and closer to a red square, because legendary E3485s, by the way. From here, rehearsal starts. These vehicles will move first. Okay. Obviously, in full video, there is much more about these vehicles that are participating, that gonna participate in Victory Day parade, and the rehearsal was taking place on at least some parts of the vehicles were stationed on Tverskaya Street, and when they start moving, they were moving towards Maneshka Square or towards Red Square, let's say, and I did try to film basically all the equipment that was stationed on Tverskaya Street. I guess there are some other areas where additionally some military equipments were also stationed, and they were also joining these ones close to Red Square, because on Tverskaya I did not saw Armata, for example, tanks, T-14 Armatas, and I was a bit surprised about it. But if Armata is gonna participate in parade, then I guess they were stationed somewhere else, because after all, this is a brand new, I mean, relatively, let's say, new tanks that are in many ways, I guess, still secret, kind of, and they were not on the display on Tverskaya Street. Or maybe Armatas will not participate in this parade this year. We will see in a couple of days' time. Jorish is commenting, I don't want Putin to leave. He seems like one of their only sane world leaders. Well, vast majority of Russian public will agree with you, because Putin enjoys a huge support here in Russia. But I mean, eventually he has to go, right? Eventually that's what is going to happen, and it is just, it does make all the sense if he's already thinking about a potential replacement, as he should. That's what responsible politicians should do, right? So, and he will choose one best candidate among many, and maybe in a couple of years' time we will find out who that someone is going to be. But currently, I mean, vast majority of society here in Russia will agree with you that Putin should stay as long as he can carry on with this difficult work that he has. But he is getting older also, isn't it? So therefore, one day, someone else will replace him, and hopefully that someone else will be also very wise and sane leader that not just Russia but the world definitely is in need for. Nikos is asking, Levan, we know that 80,000 Wagner forces are now part of the Russian National Guard, but we hear little about the 5,000 led by Prigozhin's son. Pavel, is he loyal to Russia, and what is he doing? Well, Wagner PMC was not really completely dismantled many units of the Wagner PMC did join Russian official military formations, Rosguardia. In some cases, some join Russian armed forces. And there are Wagner formations that are continuing operate as a private military company in a number of African countries where they are invited to provide security for locals in some other parts of this world. And trust me, if Wagner PMC was not loyal to Russia, then this PMC would not exist. So therefore, of course, they are loyal to Russia, by the way. And when it comes to most battle-capable units of the Wagner PMC, these are former militaries that sign up for this PMC, and those militaries are obviously loyal to Russia. So therefore, loyalty is not a question, I think, and the loyalty of the Wagner fighters were not in a question even when Prigozhin moved towards Moscow with his followers. He was not against government, by the way. He had some beef with defense minister, with Shoigu, right? And he made a huge mistake. I mean, huge mistake when his personal beef, and I can see argument that he was very not about him, but he was beefing with Shoigu because he was asking for more resources from defense ministry so that Wagner PMC would fight more effectively. I can see that logic, but still, by the way, you cannot jeopardize internal stability of the country. You just cannot do this, no matter how much you feel that you are correct. You cannot jeopardize internal security of the country, because by doing so, you are jeopardizing safety of 140 million people, 145 million people, right? And Prigozhin made a fatal mistake, and we all know how that all ended, isn't it? But yet again, Prigozhin was never. Prigozhin's loyalty to Russia was never questioned, by the way, by anybody. He had beef with certain elements, right? Not with the Putin, by the way, but with Shoigu, and there may be some others. And based on this conflict, he made very poor decisions when he moved a number of his forces towards Moscow. And during this march, by the way, number of helicopters were shut down, plane was shut down, militaries died, right? And that was the crime that should never be committed by those people. And but yet again, by the way, I'm reiterating that Prigozhin's loyalty to Russia was never questioned by nobody. And there will nobody question. I mean, he was absolutely loyal to Russia, but he was thinking that Shoigu was not doing his job properly, and this was not his decision, by the way, to make, to remove or to appoint high-ranking officials in Russian state institutions. This is Russian president's job, But when it comes to PMC Wagner fighters, by the way, they are absolutely loyal for Russia, and many of them fight great, give a great fight to enemy, and many of them die during this fight, and always will be remembered as a great Russian fighters that give their lives for Russia. So loyalty of PMC was never questioned, and no one is questioning loyalty of Wagner fighters now. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, we just received Igla-S missiles this evening from Russia. Well, that's a good news, sir. I think India will receive, whatever it needs and whatever Russia can provide to make sure that, India's defensive and their offensive capabilities are on a high level. And as I said, Russia will stand with India no matter what. I have no doubts about it, but I really hope India and Pakistan will manage to de-escalate and will find their common ground somehow, because we are talking about nuclear powers. I mean, I don't even want to imagine what could happen if these two countries go all-out war, by the way. I mean, it would be total devastation for entire world, human civilization, because I said a few times in my updates that according to a number of scientists, to provoke nuclear winter, full-scale exchange of nuclear strikes between India and Pakistan will be enough. Both countries have approximately, no one knows exactly except few people, but both countries have approximately 120, 130, 150, maybe up to 200, let's say, nuclear weapons. And even though it might not sound a lot compared to, for example, Russian arsenal of nuclear weapons or US arsenal, both countries have thousands and thousands of nukes. But still, according to some experts, if India and Pakistan will launch these nukes, as a result of explosions, so much dust will go up into atmosphere, and as a result of the fires that these explosions will create, so much ash will go up to atmosphere that Earth will be covered in a couple of weeks' time completely by this dust and ash particles. And global winter or nuclear winter will start and may last for 3 to 5 years, which will be enough to devastate modern civilization or modern human civilization to its core, right? So therefore, I mean, let's hope both sides will, manage to de-escalate, because this is just too dangerous, right? But whatever the case, obviously Russia will stand with India. This is not even a question. Russia has good working relationships, somewhat good working relationships with Pakistan, by the way. But with India, level of relationships are strategic ones. Foch Flanagan, hello, is commenting, Levan, have you kept up with the disastrous elections in the Banana Republic of Canada? Well, I was paying attention, of course, and I was a bit surprised that the Liberals still won these elections, and their number of experts are now suggesting that this is due to excessive aggression of Trump and his administration towards Canada, and somewhat similar result did occur in Australia, isn't it? Due to this aggressive tariff policies of the Trump, experts are suggesting that people turn to support current governments in the Western countries, including Canada and Australia. But I don't know. I mean, leadership of Trudeau was disaster for Canada, as far as I can tell. And maybe current leader, Corny or whatever his name is a more intelligent person that Trudeau was, or a more decent person that Trudeau was. I don't know, by the way, anything about this new Prime Minister of Canada. I'm not sure I can remember his name. I mean, Corny, But, I mean, maybe he's just more better equipped to lead country than Trudeau was, but I don't know. Policies, it's about policies, isn't it? Not just personalities, but policies too. And the policies that liberals were adopting was disaster for Canada. And how Canadians turn to vote for this very party, I don't know. I just cannot wrap my mind around this, I don't understand. But of course, I do pay attention to developments in Canada, at least on, as much as I see it in the media here in Russia. And I was surprised by these election results. I think Canadians will regret this vote. this voting in short time, in relatively short time. By the way, 30 years ago, Canada was a country to go to for living, right? Based on all charts, Canada was leading and was on the top. And if you ask me some 30 years ago, I would definitely say Canada in top 3 countries for living. But now I wouldn't even consider Canada as a top country for living, for life, in top 10. And this is mainly due to policies of these so-called liberals. And people in Canada still are voting for them, people that barely can afford housing, by the way, or cannot afford housing, actually. People that barely are managing to pay for bills, and middle class is shrinking in Canada as fast as never before. And still they are voting for liberals, by the way. I mean, why, for God's sake? Why you are destroying your own future? But yet again, maybe I don't understand something, you know? I'm not Canadian, so obviously I don't know internal political life that is going on there. I don't know. Maybe conservatives are much worse than liberals are. Who knows, by the way? I just don't know. How you gonna be worse than Trudeau's government was? Is it even possible? But I don't know. So Michael Kennedy is here. John Dickinson is here. Hello, everyone, dear friends, once again. And many thanks for your attention. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will watch this video in a recording later on. And Froch Flanagan is commenting that they are elitists, globalists, World Economic Forum people. I mean, that's just too bad, isn't it? Then I don't know what should Canadians do. I mean, they should create new elites. They should help people, decent people, to reach position of power somehow. I don't know how this is going to be done, but I mean, globalist puppets not gonna do nothing good for ordinary people, that's for sure. Anywhere, by the way, in Canada or in European states or in any other country. I mean, the globalists, they don't care about us. They care about themselves and their power, right? Wow. Philippa C is commenting that Quebec in Canada pays 56% income tax. I mean, this is crazy, though. How people live there? I mean, 56% income tax. This is just too crazy. I mean, my income tax was when I was working in Leroy before I left Leroy to focus fully on this project. My income tax was 14%, right? And now I pay taxes as a self-employed, and my taxes are below 10%, by the way, right? It increased a little bit recently, but it's still below 10%. And you are saying that income tax in Quebec is 56%. I mean, what is the point to work there? You know, this is just too crazy. So you are working, and you are, from every dollar you make, you are giving 56 cents to government for what? Do they even provide anything for this money? I don't know. This is crazy, man. I mean, 10, 15%, okay, 20% is way high, but anything above 20% is just robbing of the people. working class, right? Because rich and ultra rich, they don't care, they have a lot of it. But for us, these numbers have meaning, isn't it, for ordinary people? Cassandra Course is commenting, in UK income tax is 25%, I believe, but the VAT and all the others taxes kill you. Well, I mean, as I said, anything above 20% is just too high, and if there is additional taxes on top of that, then, well, that's just robbing of the people, man. That's what it is. Here, by the way, you know, tax policies of the government is quite loyal to businesses and their citizens also. So, you know, in terms of taxes, Russia is probably, you know, one of the best places to live and do business. I know there are some parts, some areas in this world that basically almost have no taxes, but that's exceptions, right? In UAE, I believe there is no income tax whatsoever, or something like that, and there are some other places also with similar stuff. But here in Russia, income tax stands on 14%, which is okay. I mean, you can live with that, isn't it? Nidish Kumar is asking Levan, how many assassination attempts does Burkina Faso president survive? I think France don't want to leave them alone, and they would not. French leadership will not leave alone. Leadership of Sahel countries, leadership of African countries that used to be French colonies, by the way, and they are now trying to gain true independence. They are still far away from gaining true independence, but they are trying, isn't it? And French elites will always have issue with that, and they will try time after time after time. So France will be constant threat, forever threat for its former colonies. You know, and French economy in big ways were dependent on these puppet regimes that France left in these former colonies, isn't it? And now when things are changing, resource base of France is getting weaker and weaker, isn't it? So therefore, elites in France, instead of reorganizing economy, which will take time and effort, they are trying to go sort of way that for them is more easy or acceptable, which is a destruction of governments in these former colonies and establishment of puppet regimes, so that they will have no need to change economy. They will continue to rob these former colonies, right? These nations. But nowadays, by the way, African countries have quite a powerful friends, right? In Africa itself, number of nations are becoming strong. South Africa, by the way, is getting stronger. Number of other countries, right? And they have powerful friends. You know, friends, not the colonizers, but friends. Russia is one of them. And therefore, former empires, former colonizers of African continent will have hard time to, manipulate with the African nations in a way that they did in the past. But France, as long as if French leadership will not reorganize their own economy, they will continue then to be existential threat for former colonies, because they need resources one way or another, but they need to have resources, isn't it? And where are they going to get these resources? Froch Flanagan is commenting, yes, they provide lots of woke, terrible health care, and there are bad roads. My husband paid 1,500 bill to income tax. We are bloody pensioners. I received a refund of $90. Wow, that's just too bad, man. As I said, I mean, if you ask me some 30 years ago, I will definitely say that Canada is in top 3 countries to live in. And now I wouldn't consider Canada even in top 10. Because I mean, you give me additional reasons, by the way. I mean, if some parts of Canada income tax is like 56%, and in some other parts probably somewhere around, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, then that is just way too much. And also, I mean, all this woke nonsense, I cannot stand that. I mean, sorry, but I just cannot, right? And you know, these so-called liberals are becoming fascists, by the way, very rapidly. They are not really liberals. They are just freaking fascists, man. Daniel Henriquez is commenting, most African countries are enslaved by debt to the West, so we don't have a voice. Well, give it a time. Give it a time. And with the emergence of this multipolar world, I think our African nations will have a better position to deal with economical issues and better chances to deal with the foreign influence or the Western influence. I know, dear friends, Chinese investments sometimes China is associated with their predatory investment tactics when they give easy loans to countries, and then these countries are struggling to repay, China keeps them in the clause. And I think there is true in that. But I mean, this is struggle, by the way. I mean, but still, by the way, I think our emergence of multipolar world will give our African nations a better situation to deal with their economical issues and their social security issues. So economical situation should get better, by the way. It will take time, but it's Africa is, I mean, supposed to be next main engine for world economy's growth, right? If now and the last couple of decades, Global South was main engine of global economical growth, then next has to be Africa, isn't it? African continent, which means hundreds of billions of dollars of investments into economies. There are trillions of dollars of investments, actually, and I mean, give it another 3 to 5 decades, and I think African continent will be on a same level than Global South is right now. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. I don't know, but global economy needs a new engine for massive, for sustainable growth, isn't it? And I think African continent is going to be that new engine. And Daniel Henriquez is commenting, not really, China is low in Africa. Their deals are fair. I mean, you know better. So I said this because that's what media is publishing, especially Western media, isn't it? That China has these predatory investment tactics. All the investments come with something, isn't it? No one is gifting you nothing in this life. Barely that happens, isn't it? But China being called out for practicing such a policies? I don't know. I mean, it's up to African nations, isn't it, to decide, does it worth to do business with China? Is it fair, or not? And if you're saying that yes, China does a good business with Africa, then okay, that's great, by the way. But in any case, emergence of multipolar world should give African nations a better position in this world and better opportunities. I mean, that's why multipolar world needs to be created to begin with. Nitish Kumar is commenting, Levan, Africa must follow Gaddafi's dream of common currency. Well, he was, according to some experts, by the way, he was killed because he was talking too much against world reserve currency, isn't it? And probably there was something else also to it. But yes, if African nations did manage to, integrate a bit more, but first of all, they have to stabilize, isn't it? Many African nations are in constant struggle for stability, especially because of the foreign factors that are keeping these countries down, so that they will have opportunity to rob them. So first of all, I mean, main task of African nations should be peace, right? Peace to be achieved by any means, right? And once you have a peace, you have a prospect towards stable development. And then, yes, we might talk about integration of the economies of African nations. And in that case, yes, sometime in the future, topic of one currency may emerge. But from now, this idea seems, just too far away, unfortunately. Yes, Daniel Henriquez is also commenting, Nidish, that got him killed. Yes, he was just too expressive against world reserve currency. And we should keep in mind that Libya was, and supposed to be one of the major players on energy markets. So position of Tripoli had a meaning, right? Had weight underneath. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, Japan will give good loans at very low interest rates. Well, I mean, I don't know much about Japan, but yes, that might be true. And Japan, as far as I understand, Japan is trying hard also to be active especially on the global south, in terms of investments also. And if they can, why not? I don't like Japan personally because of the crazy policies of Japan towards Russia. But that's politics. On a human level, I have nothing against Japan, really, And if you ask me, I wish success to all the nations worldwide. By the way, I mean, we all humans, isn't it? And if this is how Japan is known, that they are good investors, then great. Let them invest, by the way, in global south, in Africa, by the way. Let them compete with China. Japan is still one of the major economies in this world. Of course, they are experiencing big issues, and Japanese economy is sort of not even have much choice but to invest somewhere else, right? To have some income, because Japan is getting older and older and older. And at one point, without foreign assets, Japan may not be capable of financing its own needs, right? And there are some other issues also, by the way, in demographic issues and so on. So Japan is quite difficult situation. So to invest in other countries may be one of the few options that Japan has if they want to maintain, certain level. So Ruth Greening is here, by the way. Hello, Ruth, veteran of our community. One of the veterans, of course, our community. Ruth was, I believe Ruth was in our community when our numbers were in dozens, not even hundreds, by the way, in dozens. And I'm grateful that many veterans are here. Thank you all, dear friends. I mean, this is wonderful. Daniel Henriquez is commenting. Here Chinese give free government buildings in exchange for 6 months of no tax for Chinese products. Well, yet again, I mean, as long as it's a win-win dealing for both sides, it's all good, isn't it? So therefore, but I'm quite sure what I said, dear friends. I believe Global South was a main engine for world economy in last at least 50 years, 5 to 7 decades, even one may argue, for sure last 50 years. But now, little by little, Africa will take over, and Africa is going to become a next engine for global growth. It seems inevitable, absolutely inevitable, and Africa has everything for that: human resources and natural resources, and land, by the way, land mass, right? So it seems inevitable to me personally. Of course, if we as a humans will not destroy this civilization with some nuclear Armageddon, which is unfortunately quite a possibility, because we are living in some crazy times. And Nidish Kumar is also commenting on Singapore, that is also good at giving low interest loans. Well done. I mean, Singapore is a tiny, isn't it? I mean, probably they don't know where to invest inside the Singapore no more, and therefore they just have so much resources that they are capable of investing elsewhere with their low rates. And Ruth Greening is commenting, you have made it work, Levan. Well done for perseverance, believing that you could make it work. Well, thank you, Ruth. Thank you. It's without your support, dear friends, I would not make it. You all know this, and I know this, right? I'm still not that confident that I am in a field where I'm supposed to be, even though I'm in journalism since 17 years. I do lack some confidence in this regard, but thanks to you, dear friends, I'm still here. So truly grateful, forever grateful to you, dear friends, for this unique, absolutely unique opportunity. John Dickinson is commenting. And John, by the way, is a moderator on Rumble. As I said there quite a few times, from Monday to Friday, I will have evening news updates on Rumble, live streams. And John is helping me with the moderation there. And truly grateful. And John is also, of course, a veteran, by the way, for our community. And he is commenting that Africa deserves prosperity and success for centuries, if you ask me, horrible history of exploitation inside and out. It's time for our globe not to behave in an entire continent in such a dire condition. Our globe not to have an entire continent in such a dire condition. Absolutely, absolutely. And I believe what I said, by the way, Africa is going to be next major engine for world's economical growth. It seems absolutely inevitable. And Nidish Kumar is commenting, Leon, you see how informative, really, that's why I like, by the way, these community chats. It is always informative and I always learn something, right? Every time we have these community chats. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Leon, Japan give $20 billion at 0.25% interest rate in 2010 for 20 years only because is once you don't pay it, they will never grant the loan to that country again. Wow, that's quite conditions, by the way. I mean, I cannot argue with that. Hardly anyone can argue with that. This is a very good conditions for a loan. I mean, 0.25% interest. It's like free money, literally, right? So yes, I mean, credit should be given when it deserves. So I mean, yes, if Japan acts this way, okay, well done then. And Daniel Henriquez is commenting, Russia is also loved here because of military help and university programs since Soviet times. Yes, I know. Western propaganda did try to generate hate in many African nations towards Russia, but it did not really work that well because since the Soviet Union, by the way, Moscow was an active supporter of independent movements all around Africa, and there are university programs. Students from dozens of African countries are coming. It's a tradition now, isn't it? It's a well-preserved tradition that many students from African nations are coming into Russia, thousands and thousands, by the way, every year, and they're studying here in Russia in Russian universities. And when they spend their years in Russia and when they go back to their countries, of course, time might go on, decades, right? But this positive, friendly feelings, friendly attitude towards Russia will stay there always, and that's why in many countries Russia is being seen as a friend, which is great, by the way, for historical reasons, due to help that Soviet Union was providing for independent movements, and also for friendliness and hospitality that students from Africa were receiving here since the Soviet eras, by the way. Did I miss a question? Froch, thank you for your comment. I will go through question now. Cassandra Course is commenting, Levon, would you consider being a guide for us if we came? Well, that's I would love to be guide for any of members of our community, but I have to think twice about this because of security, right? I'm working in a field which and I have positions that not really liked by many in this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. I'm on regular basis receiving some threats, so therefore, I cannot pay for security, so therefore I just have to be as careful as I can. So therefore, unfortunately, until situation is like that, I cannot meet with people from community because I just cannot know who is the behind the nickname, right? which is unfortunate, by the way. In other circumstances, I would love to have meetings, by the way, and once situation will resolve, sometime in the future, maybe members of our community will really visit Moscow, and I would love to invite into a pub to have a pint of beer. But now I'm not gonna lie, dear friends, I just cannot allow myself to meet whenever I have some invitations, and I do time to time have invitations, by the way. Members of our community are visiting Russia, visiting Moscow, and I had communications on that matter, but I just, I have to be more careful. Which is, I hate this, right? I hate this, but I just have no option, really. Michael Kennedy is commenting, Switzerland banking anonymity was its strength, and they lost it, isn't it? They lost it. Anonymity was one big strength and neutrality was another. And Switzerland unfortunately lost both. And therefore, Swiss, not a Swedish, but although Sweden didn't go far away, they also have some issues, but Swiss financial and banking system being jeopardized, therefore, by their own elites, right? By Swiss elites themselves. And jeopardized big time. Don Zugar is commenting, Levant, try to get an interview with Zelensky. This would be a good one. Oh, no, man, I might kill him if I get one-to-one next to him. So I don't think that's a good idea. That might be a good idea historically speaking, but of course Zelensky would not give an interview to anyone that says the truth. That Zelensky is the scum of humanity. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, when is the summer in Russia? I can't bear Russian cold. I'm a tropical being. Well, sometimes, dear friends, even April is quite warm. Sometimes. But this year, winter was relatively warm, not that cold, really. But spring is a cold one. Yet again, it's all relative, isn't it? Summer, hopefully from June, from late May, let's say, weather will get warmer and warmer, and we will have a good summer. But because winter was relatively warm, then I guess summer would not be extremely hot. So towards end of May, from end of May and I guess end of September, in any case, weather is going to be good. The rest of the time, it's either cool weather or it's a freezing weather. But from end of May and before end of September, it's going to be nice, warm and nice. And dear friends, if I may, it's 2 hours now since the beginning of live stream. So dear friends, if I may, I will end this live stream now. We had a good conversation, isn't it? Thank you all for your comments, for your questions, for your time and attention. And let me ask you, dear friends, if you have not yet subscribed to my Rumble channel, if you can, by the way, if it's technically possible, please subscribe to my Rumble and participate in evening news programs. That would be great. I'm trying to promote Rumble channel all day, every day, in every my video nowadays. So yes, if you can, please subscribe to my Rumble channel. And well, many thanks for your attention, for your support. Have a wonderful day and take care. See you tomorrow.